renting is just throwing your money away, and it's definitely not. Hey guys, I'm Marissa and welcome back to my channel. Here on my channel we talk about life and money. So today I thought it'd be fun to sit down and talk about a discussion that is always a topic of debate, and that is renting versus buying. My husband and I are recent homeowners. We bought our first house in September of 2019, so we've been homeowners for the last 5 months, and I've definitely seen pros and cons to both renting and buying. We've been very open about sharing our financial journey here on YouTube, and so we paid off over $87,000 of student loan debt in about 2.5 years, the first couple years of our marriage, and since then we've been working on saving for an emergency fund and a down payment on a house. And now we get to live in this house, which is so exciting. But it's definitely taken us a few years to get there. We were renters for the first 4+ years of our marriage. So I'm going to be sharing some of my pros and cons to both renting and buying. But before we get into the video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos. So let's talk about renting first. I think that this is such a common misconception with people. I hear it all the time that renting is just throwing your money away, and it's definitely not. Renting can definitely be a good thing depending on who you are and the situation that you may be in. So let's just start off talking about the good things about renting, because it's really not that bad. A great thing about renting is that it is temporary. So if you're looking to only be in a city for a short amount of time, then renting can be really great because you're not locked into owning something, or you're not stuck somewhere for a long period of time. It also often can be cheaper depending on what you're getting. And this is one of those things that has really frustrated me when people try and argue that renting is throwing your money away and that buying is a much better option. Honestly, a lot of times renting can be cheaper. So my husband and I, we live in a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, and it's about 1,800 square feet. Now, I will say if we were to rent this same exact house, yes, our rent payment would probably be more than our mortgage payment. But we decided to sacrifice and rent something a little bit cheaper so that we could be able to save more money and work on other financial goals. So renting and buying isn't always comparing apples to apples. So instead, during our marriage, we rented everything from a 1-bedroom, 700 square foot apartment. We even actually moved in with my parents and we rented a room from them for about a year. And then we rented a 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor unit. So all of these options are definitely a lot different than the house that we currently have, but I will say the rent that we paid at all of those places was definitely a lot cheaper than our mortgage payment now. The most recent place we rented from, it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. It was honestly really nice. We really enjoyed it. It was about 1,200 square feet, and we paid $1,455 per month in rent. Now with our mortgage payment now, we pay almost $2,400 for our mortgage payment, and that includes property taxes, insurance, PMI, principal, interest, the whole thing. But therefore, renting actually can be cheaper. You can find something that you could probably rent for cheaper for a shorter amount of time than you would need to rent a larger house, if that can be an option for you. The other thing that I love about renting is that it buys patience. And I've heard this so many times, but it's honestly so true. Renting isn't throwing your money away. Instead, it's buying patience for you to be able to save up and work towards other financial goals. Not everyone in every financial situation should be owning a home. And so if owning a home is one of your goals, you may need to rent for a season to be able to save up and take those necessary financial steps to be able to make it to that point. And because of that, renting can actually be a really great thing, as it buys patience and time for you to be able to work on those goals before you actually buy a house. The other great thing about renting is that you're not tied to anything and you can leave at any time. Sure, you have to break your lease, and maybe you have to pay a fee to get out of it, but honestly, you could just pick up and move whenever you want. So now let's talk about the not so great things about renting. First off, there's rules and guidelines to follow. So they may say that you can't paint the walls of your unit, or you can't change out fixtures that you have in your home. They may even tell you that you can't have a grill on your patio, and those are just restrictions that you have to follow based on the guidelines and the lease that you signed when you started renting from that landlord. The other con could be the lease length, and that's something that gets a little tricky depending on when you're ready to move on or what you're ready to do next. I know that some places will do like a month-to-month rental, which is very convenient, but a lot of places will make you lock in a lease length term. And I remember our apartment let us choose between like a 10-month to a 12-month lease, and they had different options, but we were locked into that time period. And I think if we were to break our lease, it was going to cost us like 2 months worth of rent, which was definitely not cheap. The other con to renting that I know that we really experienced was we never really felt settled. And for my husband and I, we are such homebodies, and we just always had this goal that we wanted to have a house. Like, that was the reason why we started paying off our student loans, is because we knew we wanted to have a house and a family, and we couldn't do it all with having so much student loan debt. So that's why we got to work on paying that off. But so owning a home has always been our dream, and because we knew we wanted to be to that point, it was really hard to be patient for so long, for those 4 years. And it was hard just because we didn't always feel settled, because we knew that where we were living was just going to be temporary for maybe a year or two. The other con to renting is that there's no financial gain. And this is the part where people say, you're just throwing your money away. I mean, you are paying for a service. You're definitely paying for a service, so you're not throwing your money away. But the money that you're paying towards rent isn't going towards owning something at the end. It's not going towards an asset. It's not benefiting your net worth. And the final con to renting is that the cost of your rent can go up. I remember for our most recent apartment that we were in, we thought we'd only be there for a year. We thought we'd be able to buy a house right after that. And then at the end of our lease, we realized that we weren't at the financial place we wanted to be yet. So we decided to rent for another year. Our first year of rent, it cost us $1,300 a month, but then it got bumped up to $1,455. So that was definitely a bummer, and it's hard because that number can fluctuate while you are a renter. You can be told that your rent cost is going up. So that is another difficult thing when it comes to renting. Renting is not a bad option for everyone. In fact, it can be a great option for some people. It's great for people who are working on getting out of debt or saving, because you can choose to rent something a little bit cheaper and be able to have more money in your budget to be able to pay down debt or save up for something. And this is exactly what we did, and this is why we reminded ourselves that it was okay for us to be renters for the season. It's also great for people who are new to a new city. If you're moving across the country to a new city, you may not know exactly where in that city you truly want to live. So maybe renting for a shorter amount of time to understand where things are in the city and what neighborhoods you want to be in could be really valuable before you buy a house somewhere that you have no understanding of. It's also great for people who don't know what they want to do or where they want to be in the next few years. If you know that the city you are currently living in isn't one that you want to stay in for the next 2 years, then it may be more beneficial for you to rent during this time instead of buying. So now to talk about the pros and cons of buying, and these are things that I think we've definitely experienced in the last 5 months. Owning a home is definitely awesome, and we're so grateful to be here, but there are also some hard things that come with owning a home. First off, the pros to buying. A great thing is that you have a piece of property that you own. Like, it's crazy to think of that we own this house and this lot of property, and it gets to be ours. There's just that sense of ownership, and honestly for us, because it's been such a long time goal, it does feel like this sense of accomplishment for us. Another great thing is that you get to do what you want with it, and you get to update it however you want. When we first moved into this house, we decided to paint the entire inside of our house. Our house is only a few years old, so there aren't a lot of updates that need to be done right now, but it's also kind of fun to dream about, like, oh, we could replace the floors at some point with, you know, whatever we want. And Jacob is a total handyman, so he loves doing projects around the house, and it's been really fun for him to be able to like update a few things around the house as time has gone on. Another great thing with buying is that your payment stays the same if you have a traditional mortgage. So we have a 30-year conventional fixed rate mortgage loan. And so that means that over the entire 30-year term of our loan, which we plan to pay it off a lot sooner, our payment will remain the same. Although that is just for principal and interest for the mortgage payment, our entire payment, like I said, is made up of principal and interest, which the total of those two will always remain the same, as well as taxes, insurance, and PMI. So things that will change for our payment will be PMI. That will get dropped once we reach a certain threshold of equity in our home, as well as taxes can definitely go up. They usually go up. They don't often go down. And then insurance could also fluctuate fluctuate as time goes on. But for the most part, the biggest portion that makes up our payment will remain the same, which is really nice for budgeting and planning for the future. The other great thing about being a homeowner is that part of your payment actually goes towards increasing your net worth. Again, this is only if you have a traditional loan payment. Right now, since we've only owned our home for about 5 months, our mortgage payment is made up of mostly interest and just a small amount is going towards the principal each month. But it is really encouraging to see in our net worth update every month, which I do here on my channel. I share our budget and net worth updates. We can see that our loan balance is going down. And that in fact is then helping grow our net worth because then we have more equity in our house. Another great thing is that your property has the ability to go up in value. Now, I think we all know that this isn't going to be the case all the time, but as we've seen in recent years, home prices have gone up. Now, this can't always be the most trusted guide, but I've actually been using Zillow to kind of track what our house could be valued at as a rough estimate. And I've noticed that in the last 5 months, it says that our house has gone up about $20,000 in value, which is pretty crazy to me. But as someone who remembers the Great Recession, even though I was still just a child, I definitely know that home prices aren't always guaranteed to go up. There are definitely years and times that it can go down. And so that actually can be a risk of homeownership as well. Now, there definitely are cons to being a homeowner. And the first one is the risk of foreclosure. So if you're not paying your mortgage payment every month, then the bank could foreclose on your loan. I guess that this is also kind of a risk of being a renter. If you're not making your payment, you could run the risk of being evicted. But for some reason, just the thought of losing my home is very scary. Another con to being a homeowner is that you are responsible for fixing things around the house. As a renter, it was really nice. I remember we lived there for like a month and our dishwasher broke, and so we called up maintenance and they came in and they fixed it, and it was no big deal. But as a homeowner, all of that falls on us. And that's the responsibility of actually fixing it and also paying for it. Again, luckily for us right now, our house is pretty new and my husband is also pretty handy. But if there was something big to happen to our house, that is a scary responsibility. There are definitely financial risks that come with being a homeowner, and that is why we decided to have an emergency fund in place before we moved into our house. So we moved into our house with about $10,000 in an emergency fund, which for us was about 5 months of necessary expenses while we were renters, but once we became homeowners and things are a little bit more expensive, it was more like 3 months of expenses. So we've now been working on saving for a $25,000 emergency fund, which will be like 7 months of necessary expenses while being a homeowner. And this is something that is very important for us and a huge goal that we want to get done because we know that things can definitely come up and we don't want that to be a financial stressor for us. We also plan to have a house maintenance sinking fund, which means we're going to put money aside every month to save for necessary house repairs so that we have the money set aside, ready to go, and it can be spent if those things do come up. I've heard that a great recommendation is to save about 1% of your house value over the year. So taking 1% of your house value, dividing it by 12. So for us, we plan to put about $350 a month into this house maintenance fund, and that way we'll be saving for any necessary repairs. Another con to being a homeowner is that you usually can't move as quickly because you're tied to this big physical asset and you have to list it on the market, find a buyer, go through the whole process. It's definitely not quick. Whereas with renting, you can just walk into your leasing office and say, I'm done. Being a homeowner is definitely not a great option for all people, especially if you do not have your finances in order. But it is great for those who know where they want to be for the next several years. For us, we moved into this house knowing that it's a place that we could really be in for 10 years or more if we really wanted. Now, I'd rather not be here for 10 years, but it's definitely an option for us if we needed to be. There are definitely additional costs that come with moving, which include just, I guess, the cost of actually moving, as well as closing costs and realtor fees. And so trying to avoid doing that as frequently as possible is definitely beneficial. So when we bought this house, we knew we wanted to be here for at least a good amount of time so that we'd avoid having to pay those fees again. Owning a home is also great for people who have an emergency fund. If you are a Dave Ramsey follower, then you've probably heard him talk about Murphy's Law, which is what can go wrong will. And he talks about how people who are poor who move into a house you have Murphy move into your spare bedroom and everything seems to go wrong. And so I think that for us, it was super beneficial to move into a house with money already sitting in the bank. And it's been a huge ease of mind for us. Owning a home is also great for people who have a budget and know how much house they can afford. I remember being so surprised when we sat down with our mortgage lender and saw how much house they actually thought that we could afford, and knowing that that would be insane if we bought that much of a house. So for us, we knew our budget and we knew how much we wanted to spend each month on our monthly mortgage payment. Our goal was to stick around 25% of our take-home pay on our mortgage payment, and that would allow us the ability to still have money in our budget to do other financial goals and also be able to enjoy our lives and not become house poor. Which reminds me, if you're wanting to get started with a budget, I actually have budget templates on my shop, and this is the budget template that I use every single month. You can check it out with the link in the description box down below. So those are the pros and cons to renting versus buying. Renting is definitely not throwing your money away, and buying is not great for all people. But if you do it in the right way, it can definitely be beneficial. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more budgeting and lifestyle videos, and I will look forward to seeing you guys in that next one. Bye!